Hello everybody, Meta here, for the actual final Generation 2 ROM hack I'll be looking at before moving on to Gen 3. And don't worry, as per usual I will come back every now and then to these previous generations, especially since my list has gotten a lot longer recently. Anywho, I'm actually quite familiar with this hack, because I did play it when it first came out and I really enjoyed it back then. Of course at the time the hack did have some issues and needed a bit of polish, but overall I did enjoy my time with the hack and thought it was amazing, especially the main gimmick. Time would go by and I would watch the hack grow and grow as it got more and more updates throughout the years. However, I never really got back into it. That is, until today. Pokemon Fool's Gold by the Fool's Gold team is a hack of Pokemon Crystal that features the unique gimmick of giving all 251 Pokemon of Generation 2 all new forms, sorta like regional forms from the main series, changing their typings, movesets, and some of them having their evolution methods changed. The roster has also been expanded with the inclusion of future evolutions and pre-evolutions of the Gen 2 roster, just like what Polished Crystal did. The hack also features some added content and areas for players to indulge in and enjoy throughout the main game's journey, as well as including a ton of post-game features, making this hack almost feel endless. Just like the other Crystal hacks I've reviewed, Pokemon Fool's Gold adds in new content and features to the main journey of the original game, making the adventure through both Johto and Kanto a bit more interesting with its own unique additions. First off, and I'm just going to get this one out of the way, Fool's Gold does address the level scaling issues of the original Crystal. Just like Polished Crystal, Fool's Gold creates a couple of roadblocks, forcing the players to fight the late Johto trio of Chuck, Jasmine, and Price in the game's intended order, with proper levels. And while I do agree this is probably not everyone's favorite method to fix the scaling issues, it is one that does work. As for the Kanto leaders, they have been leveled up a bit to properly feel like post-Elite Four battles, but they still don't reach as high as level as some of the other hacks I played. Still, it's always nice to see the scaling issues be addressed, and I think the adjustments in this hack do a good job at fixing them. And also like the other hacks, Fool's Gold includes some of its own unique changes to the base game to make the experience feel a lot smoother. Some of these upgrades include eliminating trade evolution requirements, making TM's unlimited use as well as adding more to the game, improving shiny odds, and adding in more berries from the modern games themselves. Most importantly though, the hack adds in the special physical split, which is a godsend since a lot of the Pokemon in the hack suffered when Fool's Gold first came out, and it was still in a pre-split world. The hack also adds in both moves from future Pokemon games and completely new moves created by the community, granting Pokemon more moves in their learn sets since some of the Generation 2 Pokemon got a very small move pool. The new community moves themselves fit in very well and aren't really busted, so having them here is very nice and avoids power creep. Plus it shows how creative the community can be. Next up is the obvious presence of the new areas within the Johto region. The first one I'll mention is the area west of Cianwood City, inspired by the additions from Heart Gold and Soul Silver. But just like Polished Crystal, Fool's Gold adds in their own spin to this extension. Like Dandelion Lake, a small area where you can face off against the devs of the hack and explore a small cave to discover some rare Pokemon. Plus the music for this area is really good. There's also another place that can be reached after obtaining Whirlpool, where you can purchase some late game goodies that help your Pokemon grow further and further. The next new addition to Johto is the area north of Ecruteak City, that features a couple new routes and new towns Fool's Gold adds to the region. One thing I like about this new area is that you can enter it from both sides if you like, meaning there is no intended route for the area. You do need Surf in order to enter it though. Anyways, this new area is kind of split into two sections featuring their own unique themes not present in the original game. Starting from the left side is a tropical jungle looking route for the more tropical looking Pokemon within the hack. At the end of the route, you'll enter Laceleaf Town, which has a set of ruins that you can explore and some pretty interesting Pokemon down there. Other than that, Laceleaf is just your standard town with both a Pokemart and a Poke Center, as well as some people to talk to. Heading eastward from Laceleaf is the other half of the new area that features a desert theme. I really like this section because it reminds me of the desert area within the Space World 97 demo. I wonder if this area is based on that. The desert routes are very interesting in their own right, but the start of this area is Tumbleweed Town. Tumbleweed Town at first seems like a ghost town with only one building being available to enter, the Pokemon Center. And while you can get your Pokemon healed, there's something seriously off with the center itself. Either that or Nurse Joy is just very overworked, and I've been there, trust me. You can further explore the center to reveal a small dungeon filled with both Pokemon and some casual horrors. You know, the everyday stuff. What I really enjoy about these new towns and areas is that they kind of add to the small open world section once you obtain Surf, giving players more areas to explore if they desire. And I mean, they are optional, so you don't have to go there, but I would highly recommend it. These areas also act as more natural habitats for some of the Pokemon within the hack, rather than them just spawning in some random unfitting location where they would just feel out of place. So it's nice of the Fool's Gold team to go out of their way to create these locations, as well as give them personality, rather than just taking the easy way out and just throwing the Pokemon wherever. On the other hand though, Kanto didn't get too much new for it. I mean, some of the dungeons in the region have been properly restored, like the Viridian Forest, but other than that, the layout of Kanto remains mostly unchanged. The hack, however, does give all of the towns within the region quite the makeover, giving them more personality with new tile sets and decorations, making each of them feel a lot more vibrant than before. Which is nice because Kanto always feels a bit empty in Gen 2, mostly because of the lack of cartridge space. But also because you kinda just speed through it and only really remembering the side quests to get the Magnet Train Pass. As for the main story of the game, the hack leaves a lot unchanged. You still gather the badges, defeat Team Rocket's plans, and become the champion, as well as run through Kanto collecting the badges there. There are a couple of extras sprinkled in here and there, mostly with the new areas I talked about, but nothing that really affects the story as a whole, which I think is a good move. I mean, for many people, including me, Crystal is their favorite Pokemon game, so leaving the base game story the same is a really great way to show how much you appreciate the main game that you're building off of. Or it could just be that the main focus of the hack is the new Pokemon forms. That or the massive post-game. Lastly, the hack features a cool little password system where you can change up the way a new game plays. For example, you may use a password to make the game harder if you seek a challenge, or just to change the starters to be the Kanto ones rather than the ones from Johto. You unlock these passwords by completing certain milestones in the game, like being the Elite Four or the Kanto Gym Leaders, or you can always just look them up online. I'm sure you'll find them somewhere. What I love about these passwords is that they give the hack more replayability, as well as offer up several methods to play the hack without any outside resources or self-imposed rules. But since I mentioned the Pokemon, why don't we actually talk about them? I mean, they are the star of the hack anyways, so it'd be best to get them as soon as possible. As I mentioned before, Pokemon Fool's Gold's main gimmick is giving all 251 Pokemon within Generation 2 all new forms. Think of these new forms like the regional variants we have in the mainline series, and just like the regional variants, each Pokemon now sports a new type, learn set, and even a whole new Pokédex entry describing it. First of all, these forms are just actually amazing and I love all of them. I admire the amount of care and effort that went into every single one of them, and I really love each and every design. I mean, they just all scream both personality and creativity, and I really like that they still retain some of their old identity with these new designs. Let's check out the starters for example. First you have Chikorita, the Nunchaku Pokemon, who is now a fighting type rather than the grass type we all knew it as. As simple as its design is, with the only major changes being its color, the leaf now becoming a nunchuck, I think it's overall a really great design. It keeps the identity of the Pokemon we knew and switches it up a bit. Also compared to the original Chikorita, Fool's Gold gives their Chikorita a bit more offense to support it being a fighting type Pokemon. Next up we have Cyndaquil, the Ice Mouse Pokemon, who is obviously an ice type. Cyndaquil is probably my favorite of the Johto starters in Fool's Gold. Changing the fire into icicles is such a simple yet brilliant idea, and of course changing its color to match that theming. What's really interesting about Cyndaquil here is that it shares the same stats as its original counterpart, being a mixed attacker. In a pre-special physical split world, this wouldn't really be that big of a deal, but since Fool's Gold adds in the split, it allows players to take advantage of it being a mixed attacker, especially with the moves it learns. Lastly, we have Totodile, the pilot Pokemon, which is a flying type. While I do love Cyndaquil, I think Totodile has the best design of the three. First of all, the wings on its back is such a cute touch, with its Pokédex entry stating that they were handmade by Totodile himself and a little worn with the hole through them. I also love that it wears a little cap that is either a pilot's hat or a school uniform cap. Whichever it is, I think it's cute. As for its stats, just like Cyndaquil, it matches the stats of its original counterpart, being more of a physical attacker, which is complemented well with the split being present in the hack. I would also like to take a quick moment to mention some of my other favorite Pokemon within the hack, and how much I really like the designs that Fool's Gold made for them. As freaky as Doduo looks in this hack, I really like that the Fool's Gold devs played with the idea of Doduo being some sort of mutation, especially since some of the Pokédex entries in the mainline series mention it being a mutation. Fool's Gold here just takes that idea and runs with it, and I really love it. I also love that it gets Doduo away from the massive amount of normal flying types from the original games by having it being a poison flying type. Ampharos in this hack has to be one of my absolute favorites here. In fact, I used it when the hack first came out. It looks like its design is inspired by the Wendigo, one of my favorite folklore creatures, and its ghost typing really supports that idea. And also, just like all ghost type Pokemon, its dex entry features a very creepy description with it flat out saying that it eats the souls of other Pokemon. So that's cool and true to the source material. While in the original Pokemon series we have a decent amount of sentient rock creatures, something about Fool's Gold's Piloswine makes me like it more than all of them. I mean, compared to them, Piloswine here is just literally a rock with a face. Doesn't have any feet to help it walk around, nor does it just float around everywhere. It literally just sits there, as told in its dex entry. One cool thing about it though is that it shares its typing with Roggenrola being a pure rock type, so it doesn't have to worry about the 2x4 effective types, like Geodude. The last one I want to talk about is Machamp here. And man, I just really love the evolution this Pokemon goes through. Going from a snorkeler to a wetsuit wearing scuba diver, and to this is just such an amazing progression for the evolutionary line. I always really like the feeling this design gives off. Matched by its dex entry, it features mentioning how no one has seen under its helmet, adding a bit of mystery to this Pokemon rather than just being a diver wearing an old school diving helmet. Now, while we already know that these forms act as regional forms to all the Pokemon, I do want to also mention that some of the Pokemon within the hack have regional forms themselves. That's right, some of the Pokemon within the hack feature regional forms of their own, with the Johtonian forms being the base forms of all the Pokemon. For example, Tentacle here has both a Johtonian and a Cantonian form you can find in the respective regions. Some of the Pokemon that hack even feature Cantonian forms upon evolution, kinda like how the Cyndaquil line in Pokemon Legends Arceus stays the same until you get to Typhlosion where it sports a completely new form. I will warn you though, that you cannot access the Cantonian forms until you properly enter Kanto post Elite Four, meaning that the road to the Indigo Plateau doesn't count as Kanto in the hack. Of course, to me this is just amazing, because as I've said before, I love regional variants. So having a regional variant on top of these new forms is simply just beautiful to me. I didn't think the Fool's Gold team could top their already great idea, but they did. If only there was a whole other region to add even more variants to the hack. Then that would be awesome. While I know a good amount of people are already aware of the massive postgame this hack features, I do still want to put a spoiler warning for this section of the video for those who are interested in this hack and would like to play it as blind as possible. For that reason, I will be putting up a timestamp that skips this section as a whole and goes into the section after. Alright, for those of you who are still here, let's continue. Once you complete everything in both Johto and Kanto, you are given access to go to the Sevi Islands. Yes, the Sevi Islands from Fire Red and Leaf Green, with a couple of Fool's Gold exclusive changes. In the Sevi Islands, you will take on the island's challenge of defeating the 7 shrines of the Sevi region. But before you can start your journey, you'll be approached by Eris, a trainer from the Unova region also looking to complete the Sevi challenge, who will engage you in battle, giving you your first look at what kind of challenge to expect within this new region. Eris, who will become your new rival for the Sevi Islands, is actually a pretty tough opponent, and they possess a very solid team that will slowly grow stronger and stronger with each encounter with them, as a rival should. And as much as I don't like them and their attitude, I can say they are a great rival for this very reason, in a sense making the player want to beat them with each encounter, and providing to be quite the challenge as well. As for the Shrines of Sevi, each one features its own gimmick, putting the player's skill to the test, like having them only use one Pokemon for all the trainer fights, or having to take on back-to-back trainer battles without a break. And just like the gyms, back in Kanto and Johto, there will be a leader to battle at the end of the shrine. But this isn't the end of the shrine itself, no. Once the shrine's leader has been defeated, you have to challenge the shrine's Pokemon, and where you can either defeat it or catch it. After that, you're given the shrine's emblem to signify your victory. One cool feature about the shrines is that you can challenge any of them in any order, except for the 7th one, which has to be the final one. Now you might think that already this is a huge amount of content for this Hacks postgame, featuring a whole new region to explore, more challenges to face, and more people to meet. And you would be correct. The Sevi Islands themselves are a wonderful addition to the hack, not only because they provide all the things listed above, but also because they're a familiar region that most Pokemon fans know about, and it's neat to see them return in any form. But what if I told you that the Sevi Islands themselves aren't the only Gen 3 reference this hack has to offer? And no, I'm not talking about some of the baby Pokemon that Gen 3 gave some of the Gen 2 Pokemon. I'm talking about the fact that the region has all 135 Pokemon introduced in Generation 3. And not only that, but these Pokemon also feature completely new forms. Yeah, quite the bombshell, but a very welcome surprise for sure. I mean, I was completely caught off guard by this, hence why I think people should play this hack as blind as they can because of massive reveals like this. Along with these new Pokemon, there are also Sevian forms for some of the 251 Pokemon from both Johto and Kanto. And I mean, come on, like seriously, how much more can they add? I was already hyped about the initial new forms the hack is known for, and even more excited about the Cantonian forms for them, and now I get hit with all this? I mean, it's just amazing. I have no words. Lastly, the Sevi Islands within Fool's Gold also features some of its own unique pieces of content that doesn't exist in Fire Red and Leaf Green, with a couple of them existing to help players level up any new Pokemon they obtained in the region so they don't have to spend countless hours power grinding against wild Pokemon. Some of the newer pieces of content even build upon some of Crystal's original story, adding more to the lore of certain characters. There's also plenty of areas here that play the same role as the new routes in Johto, being proper homes for some of the Pokemon within the region. The Sevi Islands as a whole is a wonderful addition to this hack. With everything it adds from the new challenges to the new Pokemon, it truly is one of the best post-game adventures I've ever experienced in a hack. I truly think the Fool's Gold team outdid themselves with this. I mean, it's the icing on the cake. They could have easily just kept the hack with the 2 regions that were already present within the game, and it would have been great, but they didn't. And I think that's really makes this hack special. Simply put, it's peak. Now, before this review is over, I wanted to talk about a couple of things outside of the hack created by the Fool's Gold team. Several little extras the team didn't need to make or provide, but did so to show both their dedication and passion for the project. Plus it adds charm to the hack. Let's start with the custom box art created for the hack itself. While most ROM hacks feature some sort of cover art, either made by a fan or by the hack creator themselves, the Fool's Gold team decided to take it one step further and create the design both for the front and back of the box. Of course, the front of the box features your standard Pokemon game cover art, complete with the illustration of the hack's mascot, Aipom. The art for Aipom here was done by Kyle Kolb, and it looks really good, matching the style of Ken Sugimori. I also really like the purple and yellow gradient for the background, matching the colors of a jester, or in this case, Apom himself. The back of the box itself matches the back of Pokemon Crystal's box, which makes sense considering it is a hack of Pokemon Crystal. It does however feature both gameplay screenshots and details pertaining to Fool's Gold itself and all the extra content it features. I really love the amount of effort that went into creating these designs and how they made it look as good as an official box. They also even made a matching sticker for the Game Boy cartridge. So if you really wanted to create a custom box and cartridge for Fool's Gold, then you can. Next, there's a website for Fool's Gold that provides loads of information for both players and people interested in the hack to read. The site itself includes a frequently asked questions section, a list of all the Pokemon, a list of all the Pokemon moves in the hack, a download link for the hack itself, an invitation to the Discord server, and a link to the soundtrack. The FAQ section is just what you think it is. So before you go asking the devs any questions you might have on the hack, checking this section out first would be a great place to look. But if you don't see your question within the FAQ, then I'm sure the devs will be happy to answer it within the Discord. Next, the list of all the Pokemon in the hack is the meat and potatoes of this site. Each Pokemon has been given its own page detailing everything about them. Their base stats, what moves they learn, how they evolve, and the location you can find them in. The first stage evolutions even show off what egg moves they can learn, and the parent required to learn said move. These pages have been a godsend for me when I reached the postgame while looking for a new team to use, and how to get the moves I wanted them to learn. Speaking of moves, you can easily access the list of moves when clicking any of the moves listed in a Pokemon's Learn set. The list of moves features, well, a list of all the moves within the hack. This includes the ones that existed in the original game, moves that were taken from future generations, and moves that are completely new to the hack itself. So if you ever find yourself confused about a new move your Pokemon is trying to learn, you can always give this list a glance. Lastly, you have the link to the soundtrack, which leads you to a playlist on YouTube. Now I know some people might just see this as a nice way for the composer Celadon to let people listen to the original tracks as well as the covers in the hack, but to someone like me who really enjoys music, there's just so much more to it. I won't go into too much detail about it, but all I have to say is I really enjoy how Celadon goes into detail about the songs themselves and the descriptions of the video, rather than just uploading them and calling it a day. Also, all the original songs and covers in this hack are really good. I love listening to them in the hack itself, and even on my own time while writing this script. So, you did a great job, Celadon. Pokemon Fool's Gold is a hack that I can confidently say blew my mind. I mean, the amount of work and passion that went into this hack is outstanding, and you can see it throughout the entirety of both the main game and the expansive postgame. I mean, coming from playing it when it first came out to just replaying it now, I simply have no words for how crazy it is to see how far this hack has come. And for what I understand, this is the final version of the hack. So I'm happy to see this hack reach its completion, and I have a feeling the Fool's Gold team is pleased with the final product here. I would most certainly recommend this hack to anyone who wants to play Pokemon Crystal, featuring a whole new roster and just plenty of content to enjoy. Now there is another patch file bundled with this hack that the devs added in, but I think I'll get back to it later. As this review was just to talk about the base hack itself, which is already big enough so I can only imagine what's in this little patch here. Plus I had to actually get to Gen 3 this time instead of pushing it off like I did for this hack, but I can say it was entirely worth it. Meta, out.